Welcome to From the Left. My name is Stephen Leon. I'm running for Virginia's House of Representatives and here in the 8th District. Thank you to the GC Network for hosting the show. Topics tonight are the VP debates, the Hurricane Helene. Melania Trump said something recently today. There's a Hill article on bodily autonomy, last Sunday's debate, and also 2 weeks ago, I had some mic problems. So there's a couple of items in there that didn't come out very clear that I just want to reiterate. And then there's something in Maryland's 8th district that I would like to kind of put out there as a variable. And then also next week's show. So let's go to the VP debate. Now, the polls will show that Vance won the debate. And this is a thing where I've been long saying it, where the performance, if you looked at the performance, just the way somebody is standing there or sitting there in front of a camera, you would say that he won. But based on the policy and the facts like that, I would disagree. You know, I've said this before, and everyone knows when it comes to, let's say, tax policy, even on both sides, you're going to see, and that was a part of last week's debate too, where Joseph Langong kind of dropped the ball on that, where my position is that if you look at the experts and see what they're saying, even the Congress already knows that it's causing, like, everyone's like, well, either way, it's going to put us in deficit. So simply put, it's Trump is going to basically, the rich are going to get richer, and then the environment's going to suffer because he's going to roll back a lot of the investments that we've made with green technology and stuff like that. And then with Harris's plan, with some of the housing benefits and everything like that, is also going to put us in deficit. So if you back one of those up with, which would be Harris, if you care about the environment and the housing crisis, that was just exasperated from COVID. It's not migrants or illegal immigrants, or if it's even anyone that has claimed immigration from here. So through asylum. So again, it's about that performance. I didn't mention the big data tax. It's a big thing. Look at that and how that is estimated at 1.3 trillion in tax revenue. So we don't want to pass that off to consumers through price gouging. And if we did that, then geez, I don't know, speculative. You would say that Facebook would start charging, and nobody would want to do that. If we were to get a big data tax and then we didn't implement any form of price gouging mitigation, then Facebook would do that, and then that may spawn other social media. And then if it was not for profit, and then you could still run ads on that in dynamic, and it would actually be cheaper. So, but we don't want price gouging, or it would spawn all kinds of things. If we didn't have the price gouging, again, just to use your internet, and then they're going to use the data to sell you stuff, alienate you, or maybe even socially engineer you. So that big data tax opens up the doors, as with many things do, relates to other things. So it goes back again, just because you see somebody who can stand there and bullshit you, you know what I mean? Like, that's who you're going to think won the debate. I said the same thing about Biden. I started off running for president, in 2022, very ambitiously. My confidence has always been in my plan, the ideas that I'm bringing forward. And it would just bother me that, I got on the Nevada presidential preference primary ballot. Nevada was very easy, no signatures required. And I got like 80 votes basically at that point. I mean, who knows me out there just from what they see on LinkedIn or anything. But so I'm looking at Biden objectively. If there were going to be any debates, and if I had gotten any momentum from that, then what is it? What is it that's not working? And he just, the same superficiality, the plutocracy, and things like that. And then go to look up Stephen Leon for president on Facebook, and you can see. Look for the graphic that says Bidenomics with a line through it. And this is the guy who was running in the Democratic Party. So, anyways, when Trump and Biden debated, I had said that Biden won the debate, and I still think he does. It's not about who can stand there. Again, I'll say it, whoever can look most confidently. And I put a meme from that. I took Thomas Jefferson, and I wrote, since when did politics become more of a performance art? And if you know anything about Thomas Jefferson, he was not well known for his public oratory. So if Thomas Jefferson were running for president these days, you wouldn't nominate him. You wouldn't nominate him at all, if that's how you're looking at things. And it says a lot about any candidate that comes up there. no matter what party they're from or whatever it is. Like, let's take my debate with Joe Lango. Now he dropped the ball on the tax thing, but just if you just look at him right there, would that be enough to not vote for him in your district? Look at it closely. There are other things. Maybe he just wasn't confident, or maybe I know I'm right. That's why that's why he is. He got convoluted with all these different positions with certain things, and I looked at it, and that's he knows just as well as I do the environment is a crisis, and we don't want the rich getting richer. But it's when you start getting involved in those party politics, and you know that there are people that are appeasing that leadership, then that's something that I've always been something of I've evolved into an independent Democrat. You know what I mean? So that change comes within. That reminds me, I was spending yesterday watching the newsroom, and that's a really cool thing how it opens up, and it's just how just the whole show is really cool. It's very just dramatic, you know what I mean, with some of the personal relationships and things like, oh, that reminds me of Olivia Munn's in there. And I'm just saying this off a tangent. I have to put this out there. Olivia Munn's there's a scenes like she's married now and everything, but if you look at her, it's how striking she is. And where I think they asked her character why she was still single. And she's like, lots of men. She didn't say some men or every man, or she said lots of men are just intimidated by my intellect. And I was like, it's both. Are you kidding? I can't even imagine just to keep up with just wow, what an amazing person. So even in character or not, everyone knows that Olivia Munn. So, anyways, so that's the thing about it. And I'm comparing myself. I'm like, I'm looking at this and people are watching the news the first 10 minutes or whatever it is, and I'm kind of analyzing it. And I've seen the newsroom before, years ago. And that show is 11 years old. You know what I mean? And some of the ideas that are in there talking clearly, geez, Jeff Daniels, everyone knows from Dumb and Dumber too. I'm just gonna tease and say Harry Dunn, Harry Dummer or whatever. It just to see how he's a Republican, and they're talking about how the Tea Party, all those ideas that we're seeing now that have divided the right, it's not the entire Republican Party. It's just the opposition to the lack of better ideas, and it's just what they're trying to do when it comes to winning, and all these different bullet points that you'd have to see the show. It's on HBO. It's pretty cool. But also comparing myself, and that's not healthy. I'm seeing how everything's scripted in there and how they're all pretty much talking the same way. It's all flawless. It's a show. It's a show. You know what I mean? There's no way I'm working off without a script right now. I have those bullet points that I just mentioned, topics, and then I'm just going with the flow on it. And then I do a little rehearsing of what I might say throughout the day or whatever, and it's how it is. And if I was at a debate, last week was a good ad hoc to that, or mock up, if you want to call it that, and just to have written statements and then everything else free form. But again, it doesn't come down to who can, yeah, just bullshit you. I think even if you see Walls looking in reaction to some of the things that Vance was saying, he was like on panic when I looked at him. That doesn't mean he lost. You know what I mean? It's upsetting. Again, I go back to that Thomas Jefferson reference, that's how we look at it. You got to get media literate, things like that. And there are very much some things on the left that's just the way some of the candidates, just the superficiality of it. And it's just covering for the plutocracy. How much of that is that? So Hurricane Helene, everyone knows, everyone in their proper mind knows that climate change will affect the severity of hurricanes from scientists, experts. You see Trump out there and he's just talking about how he's empathizing, but then at the same right, he's talking about drill baby drill, not really doing anything to mitigate the equilibrium. CO2 is natural. We live in an Anthropocene era. If you look at how through the cycles of the planet, if you think of the planet as an egg and her developmental stages and things like that, we're in the Anthropocene era where we have control over our environment. We have control over our own bodies. We can do that. And we've always been that way with agriculture, our pets, our food, everything, our what we create, opposable thumbs, walking on two legs and all that stuff. So that's just how we are as a species. So the most prominent idea that I can come up with, and what you hear is it's the finance of fossil fuels. And if you just convert those fossil fuel assets to offset the green premium, then that would slowly begin the transition. That doesn't mean that fossil fuels will go away. That's an opportunity for these companies to evolve and develop new recycling programs. Lots of things can be made with carbon fiber, carbon this, all kind of new building structures, clothes, iPhone cases, shoes, everything is recyclable. So you can still, in theory, pump oil and then just don't burn it in the atmosphere. But there again, there's that equilibrium that we'll do, and delegating jobs that it would be up to responsible CEOs to do that. But just making that one switch to offset the green premium from fossil fuel assets, again, those fossil fuel assets would still belong to those fossil fuel companies like Exxon or whatever, the Carlyle Group. They would just be converting that into their packages and taking the long-term investment, and their shareholders would be happy, and so will consumers. So that would naturally happen. That's not going to be any taxes back to the government that I can see. It's just using the government's power to mandate that. That can be done under a climate emergency. I would have done that as president, or that can be done through Congress. So, and it's an international challenge, and that could lead as an example. We would, how much money there is to be made to the transition instead of all the misinformation, and it's a pretty big deal. So Hurricane Helene is just one example of how storms are going to just get worse and more intense. This is the time to do it. This is the time to change, right? Moving on to Melania Trump, I saw a Hill article, and she's advocating for bodily autonomy, which is the same as prenatal volition, yes, abortion. But she's not talking about where to draw the lines. So this is pretty neat on how you've got Republicans, I'm generalizing here, I don't like to do that, but how they wouldn't pass something like IVF, but then you have the leader of your party saying otherwise, and you're just kind of going with that just to make it look like you're working, just to fuel the misinformation. Doesn't work. I've drawn the line. I've talked to women about this. This isn't something I just came up with, and I'm advocating for federal law. State law, I'm fine with it. If I was running for as a delegate here, I would leave it as trimester as it is, unless women or doctor, whoever, we just don't want to change it. It's fine the way that it is. But from a federal level, and Trump himself, during the VP debate, he was saying that he would veto a ban on abortion. He's just left us a hole. He left us an opening for that. So he's shooting himself in his own foot, in a manner of speaking, with a lot of things. So yeah, and then so I'm advocating for a 3-month minimum. I've said this before. 93% of abortions are done within the first 13 weeks. We're talking about 7% outside of that. Okay, so whatever the state laws may balance to that, it's up to the states to decide there. But within 3 months, where let's say a state doesn't want to have a state law for, well, then they're going to have to accord to a 3-month minimum. And if a woman decides to go cross state lines, and then you can't violate her Amendment 8, she would be protected. So it's pretty simple. I think that's kind of neat on how you have a president and his wife having these positions, and then there's a party over that they're supporting, that they're a part of, that isn't going to, because why? Because you just want to win some of the House, you want to, or some of Congress, you'd have the executive. This is not working. It's like, I guess I'm colorblind. You know what I mean? When it comes to politics, what's the big deal? Like, if you just want to keep it simple, geez, if you're in the Democrat Party, you support general welfare. We don't want to take that to excess. If you're in the right, then it's fiscal responsibility that requires moderate regulation. So it's just that simple. You got to see that newsroom. This is something that Jeff Daniels was talking about, how there's just not enough Republicans standing up for what is their party, and change comes within. So I can tell you right now, being always leaning left and always voting that way, how much flack I get from my own party. It's a little bit different. Liz Cheney's a good example of what it's like to have your own party turn against you or whatever, have their own opinion, but not based on fact. And when I'm going after people, what change comes from within. So it's no secret too. If I was president, I would totally consider Liz Cheney as a VP. And if anyone knows, Lincoln himself, his second term, his VP was from the other party. that's something neat to think about how stuff. And plus, it was her financial skills is what it comes down to. It's really if all these things that I'm talking about, iron out the details. I'm the final say with principal, and I'll sign it, right? So trusting the experts and all that stuff. Um, yeah, moving on to last Sunday debate, kind of already covered that with Joe. That was really cool that he accepted that there was a mix up. It was on. I originally I'd sent him a message on Twitter, and that was right. And then on LinkedIn, it was like I was getting ready for work, and then I tagged the wrong person on LinkedIn, and then that person responded on Twitter. We went back and forth for like a day, and even like just kind of psychosomatic if you look at the photo that was on the LinkedIn versus Joseph Langong on Twitter. And so that was just kind of neat. People just kind of went back and forth with comments and stuff like that. So, but that went good. It gave me a chance to practice and to be reasonable and to hopefully even have a new colleague one day, and we see eye to eye on a lot of things and some things not so much, but we're able to have that's cool, that someone in Texas too, when you think of like Republican, how could you get more Republican than Texas? And all that stuff. So it was really cool. Made a friend out of it too. So yeah, and that's a sign for other things to come. It's not I'm grateful that he accepted that without any kind of negativity. We talked on the phone for hours before that, so it was cool. 2 weeks ago, I had the some mic problems over there, and just I didn't even post it on my social media. Basically, from that, what I wanted to do is just kind of reiterate what so a couple of key points with the 13 minutes that I have left here was let's see here. Oh, so this is huge. I've had being objective to the incumbent here and seeing his positions on artificial intelligence and jobs. Some of the bones that have come out of his mouth when it comes to lobbying and all that stuff. And then this is positive for me in my campaign to have something objective, but how it actually affects people, it's not so positive. So when it comes to look in California and with the fast food, they have a $20 minimum per hour wage. And you do that and it's going to affect mom and pop shops. And then it's also going to affect price gouging and all this, but also it's going to replace jobs. There's this avocado machine. Am I saying that right? Is it's a robot. It's a robot, and the whole line is going to change. Avocado, and it's augmented make lines. So how it's reducing 20% of staff is what it's doing, and it's kind of the way that I see that analogous to something that happened at COVID. I'm not saying that the concept of artificial intelligence is a virus, and all comparisons break down analogies, metaphors, all that stuff. So if you just kind of see with how COVID, the um the restaurants and hospitalities were what were affected most, and now we're seeing that, and California is a perfect example. So here, like the only thing I can see that's most reasonable is at the federal level, when it comes to minimum wage, is $12 minimum, because otherwise it's going to open the door to robots taking your jobs, giving more power to the bigger corporations, pushing out smaller businesses, and then price gouging, all that stuff. So here I am being objective to the left right there. If the idea is to bring up wages, have that general welfare, and to have that compete with everything else that's going on with the private sector and it comes to housing, energy, and food, then you know what I mean? It's you can't raise it. You gotta mitigate the plutocracy. We have to mitigate the corporations. We are a country founded on peasants rebelling, commercial monopoly, the monarchical variety, but commercial monopoly nonetheless. And if you look at the right, how they're using religion, in their form also. So think about that. On the left too. You know what I mean? On the left, it's the plutocracy is a bit different. It's still plutocracy. You might have some more dark money on the right, and on the left, there's small donations there, but there's still lobbying. You know what I mean? The CEO doesn't care. It's just who even, and that brings up to my next point that I want to talk about that was on my show 2 weeks was the Teamsters didn't endorse. This is the first time that they haven't endorsed a presidential candidate since, was it 96? Something like that. I'm looking at a Hill article because they're already appeasing big businesses, both candidates. So here is a union group who isn't gonna, so it's really up to it's up to Congress. It's up to, I have that perfect, I've only received one $40 donation, and I wouldn't need to take money from any lobbyist to push a law that benefits the people more than the companies that, there's a lot of different things that need to be put into play when it comes to mitigating that. American Anti-Corruption Act is one of them that mitigates the plutocracy. I looked at HR1 early on. If you see that for 2021, it's almost like they look at where it talks about the campaign finance reform, and it's like it's almost like whatever argument was from the right, it wasn't. Well, first of all, I think it just looks. Tell me otherwise. It just looks like you just plastered a couple of things on there just so it wouldn't pass because you want to hold on to your power. You know what I mean? It's just you've got geez, that guy from Kentucky. What's his name? Jeez, what is that guy man's name? Ah, can't think of it. Anyways, and just to see how that even the state of Kentucky is run. There's a article out there, you can find it, states that are most independent. Kentucky's one of the least. They're dependent on more federal funding than a lot of other states. And then you've got whoever in the House or Senate saying smaller government. Yeah, sure, but just the general welfare works to a certain degree. But if you're just gonna, what is working? And they don't want to cross promote ideas. It's so silly on how these parties come between what ourselves, everybody knows that. So that is neat to see what's going on between, um, again, just what's going on with presidential candidates. And so that was pretty much what I wanted to cover from 2 weeks ago. So as a variable, Maryland's 8th district. Just to be proactive, if I were to lose this election as a write-in because of the ballot circumstances, if you've seen my website and what I went through my best efforts, independent best efforts, little outside influence, getting on the ballot, and whether or not, even as an independent, you know what I mean, to even get that media circulation and to be invited to some of these events and everything like that for my name to be out there, which I have always, because of that, I've just been relying on social media, just going after every post that I can. And if some people want to look at that as trolling, well, I had no other option. So I'm considering running for Maryland's 8th district, which is right across the river from here. And now I lived in Maryland, in Columbia, Maryland, between the ages of 3 and 8. And we moved back here in Northern Virginia. I've always gone to a lot of church meetings. Some of my favorite church meetings are in the Bethesda area. I've been doing that for decades. So I know a lot of people. I know the people there. You know what I mean? I know, and it's a federal position. You know what I mean? Like there are a lot of things that the cross between federal and local and stuff like that stuff can be easily learned. Also, is something that I'm moving forward with the Digital Democracy Project. Getting a direct access, having them being the superseding kind of voice, and it's you have to be cautious even then. But it doesn't mean that there couldn't be some lobbyist trying to get in there, or whatever it is. Yeah, so it's very important that but if we had mitigated the plutocracy to begin with, then it wouldn't matter. So it's something that has to be all these, it's usually like it's maybe 5 dots that you just have to connect with anything, right? So what's really cool is that there are no signature requirements to get on the ballot, party or not, in Maryland. It's $100 registration fee. Now, if I ran again here in Virginia's 8th district, and I plan on running the party this time, again, change comes from within. So to have, and I wouldn't be like a Joe Manchin, especially with some of the climate things, and you just have to be objective to me, ask me questions. You know what I mean? If I were to run in Virginia's 8th district in the party, the Democrat Party, then I would have to submit 1,000 signatures by April 4th, I think it is, and then a $3,480 fee. Now I have a day job, okay, 9 to 5, work in Alexandria at a law firm, been in the field for 15 years, I have a couple patents myself, and That is a lot. Again, starting off on my own again, and if I haven't been blacklisted to get a campaign manager, just again, that's just something I've had to do with being objective in the party that I've always voted for. You know what I mean? And just to risk that. Or there are two reasons why I decided to run as an independent, mostly for to keep it simple. One, so people could get to know what I'm about, that they could see my platform, so I wouldn't be subject to a primary, and also to be a genuine vessel. And even then, I get flack from people that just because they see anything Democrat, and that's not everybody. They do an instant generalization. And I tell people, look, I'm probably the most objective person to my own party that you'll ever have communication with. You know what I mean? I'm not in it for to appease some lobbyist or plutocracy. I'm in it for in a lot of ways, reform. And there's some things that can be reformed on the left, and how much validity would I have to change from within on the right? You know what I mean? So, but I know that people hear me. If you're listening, I know that people will do that. And even then, you know what I mean? Like you can look at someone like Liz Cheney and see what she said and how her positions on things have evolved, especially with gay marriage and things like that. So yeah, that would be really cool. So yeah, that's why I would have just like white on rice. I'm all over it. I'm looking at Raskin. Now if you know who if he wins, he would be the incumbent and for the 120th Congress in the 2026 cycle. There's already some scandals there. Raskin is the guy, he was on the J6 committee. And you think a guy that was on the J6 committee would advocate to for the root causes of things like that. Now he's not as dirty as Don Beyer, but he's definitely just pointing his finger a lot. He's not being objective enough to the left when it comes to certain things, or just plutocracy in general. So there's already been a scandal. His wife is what we call a revolving door lobbyist. There's $1 million that she made with some of the things when she's working at the Biden administration and didn't report it on time and stuff like that. So it's like if we want to mitigate corruption, we don't want to see that you have a history of it. It's almost like someone who has conducted an abortion and then is sitting on the right advocating for abortion to be illegal. It's like, again, all things break down when you compare them, but still, it would be something like that. So I'm just looking at, I already have an objective platform of how I'm going to go after Raskin if I need to. And then, that's the cool thing. It's that, just to be constitutionally honest in some of the church meetings that I'm familiar with in that area and some of the men that have guided me, through my way to learn how to bring that constitutionality to just to be the voice of it. But yeah, but it's not always about being objective and just going after someone whatever creative way. It's like, what are you bringing to the table after that? Platform wouldn't change as far as I can tell. I'd have to maybe tweak some things. But I would much prefer to win this election, but I have a backup. And this is about the people. It's not about me. And again, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence, Joe Langong, he had learned something new about that and how he sees it as a threat to national security. So do I when it comes to tax revenues and things like that. And we don't know how fast or slow that something like this is gonna come about. So, and a lot of these things, once you start peeling away all the superficial layers of things, these aren't partisan issues. These are just people's issues, even when it comes to abortion. You know what I mean? They fed that in your head, and it's just and it's really cool that there's in the Constitution. Elections there's some power, but the Constitution at its core, grants no power to the parties. What does it say? We the people, okay? It doesn't say we the people in the parties. So next week's show is gonna be really cool. I've got a LinkedIn connection from this organization called Independent Elect Tennessee, and they're essentially going and bringing together independent candidates and educating. So we're going to have them on the show next week, and we're going to make it more about them so they can tell us where they're coming from and what they hope to achieve and all that good stuff. So that's just me being nonpartisan, I guess. I can work with other people's in all different types of what are the ideas that these candidates are bringing, and so that'd be cool. And maybe that's what it is when it comes to what is an independent. To be, I think we all are, I think, in one way or another, to be independent thinkers and to be able to say no our own party. Time is up. I gotta go. I will see y'all next week and have a good evening.